This sound is called a riser and is used in almost every single EDM track I've ever heard in my whole entire life. This is the sound that you would use to transition from a DJable intro into a drop. Underneath the comment, as you can see, I've done nothing here other than make it monophonic. Under the oscillator section, I've used the Super Saw oscillator with the detune up all the way. Only one oscillator was used in this sound. Underneath the pitch, I have detuned the synth all the way with the envelope depth up and the attack all the way up. This is what gives the sound its rising feel. If we were to take this and flip it, it would feel like it's falling, but we don't want that because it's a riser. Underneath the filter, I use low pass filter number 1 and a 24 dB slope. Usually with saws, super saws, or anything that's been detuned, I usually use a 12 dB slope for more grit, but in this scenario, I preferred the 24 dB for the smooth characteristics of the filter. As you can see, I turn the filter down, it's not all the way up, and neither should any one of your synths. I honestly prefer less filter and a little resonance, gives it a little bit more characteristics, a little brighter scenario, and it just sounds a little bit more analog. As we look at the envelope depth though, the ADSR here, as you can see, I have made the filter open up slowly with the sustain all the way up, and the envelope depth all the way up yet again. I've given a little bit of release, and that's just so it doesn't click when I let go of the key. And for the amp is very simplistic. I've used the level all the way up, and the sustain all the way up, and a little bit of release for the popping feature that I was talking about with the filter. Now under the LFO, with the fade time, I have it fading in on the pitch depth with a triangle format on a dotted half note. The reason why I have that is to give the riser more characteristics as it develops in time. This is how you make your synths feel more alive as they grow. Under the effects section, these are the most two important parts of the sound, to tell you the truth. I've used the overdrive, and as you can see, the drive is very, very hard. But notice something interesting. At the low gain, I've taken away all of the low end. And to get the most distorted, clean, crunchy sound you want, you have to get rid of almost all of the low end for it to actually distort properly. If you distort with low frequencies, well, in that scenario, you're making nothing more than square waves. So taking away the low end, adding the distortion, gives you different harmonics. And I also gave it a little bit of high gain. And last but not least, you hear some reverb on it. I've used the track effects, and I've put the reverb there. Now I understand, well, how do we get that into our songs? If it's on the track effects, that means it affects the whole entire synth. Well, that's easy. We just come over here to sampling, right? We find an empty spot. We're going to switch it into keyboard input, and down here on auto trigger, we want to turn auto trigger on. So now the synth is waiting for us to play it, so it'll resample when we're ready. Go ahead and pick the note you want. And make the synth as long as you want. These things will climb for a very long time. Alright. Thank you very much. This again is the riser. Very popular sound in all EDM songs.